During this segment, we will be using several props. We're using a lovely head pillow. It's the perfect shape pillow, and it's nice and firm and has this nice little dip. So it's very supportive, I find, for most of my clients. You can lift your head up. So that might be a good fit as a head pillow. Also, some clients, we just use a neck bolster, which sits more under the neck. So I just play around with whatever bolsters or props or head pillows best conform to the alignment of my client. It's also advisable to use a prop if we're going to be sitting for longer periods of time, and that'll allow for us to be slightly elevated. So I've just tucked this little neck bolster under my sitting bones, so it just elevates me a little bit, and it'll allow nicer blood flow down to the feet. When using our foot fold, when we're turning the leg in and then bringing the foot down towards us, many clients will have a big gap here or a little space. So what we want to do is always fill that space. So this bolster is a perfect fit for this posture. That way you can place the bolster under the sole of the foot, and it still leaves for a really nice stretch on the top of the foot. We can also use our little prop under the knee. So when we're working the inner leg, if the client's leg externally rotates too much, where we can't access this line properly, we can place this prop under the knee, and this way we will pull the leg closer to us, exposing this inner line. That also works on the outer leg. So when working outside line 1 or 2, if the client's leg externally rotates too much, say out, where we can't access those outer lines, using this prop under the knee, rolling the leg slightly away from us, allows us to work outside line 1 and then possibly access outside line 2 by elevating the knee slightly. Making note of the space or gap under the knee. For someone who's quite flexible, we won't need a prop here. I'd say this is probably average, and you'll need to really place props under to totally support that leg so that we're not overstretching them in the groin area. Tree fold. We place our prop just above the knee, folding one knee over the other. This creates enough space between the legs, and we need to create more space for a male client. So using a thicker prop or a folded pillow. This is a large block that we'll be using in the side segment. And as you can see here, we have inserted this large block into a pillowcase with a flat pillow on it. So that gives us the density we require with a little bit of cush on top. We use the block to give us better alignment in the side series by lifting the leg and having a high enough pillow under the head. It gives a nice alignment to the spine from the head to the tailbone. Prone position, the position where the client is laying face down on the mat. We will be using some props, and we'll demonstrate on Diana how these props can be used in your practice. So when Diana lays on this prop, the important thing is that the top of the prop sit below her collarbone, and that'll be a good placement so the top of the prop is not restrictive in her throat area. So Diana, let's have you come down onto the prop. Okay, several ways to use these props is by using in tandem the chest bolster and the neck bolster, we can create a face cradle. So lift your head up. So this creates a lot of space where the nose is not touching the mat for clients that have difficulty turning the head. And then sometimes this is a little too high, so the option is to remove this and just have the forehead resting comfortably on the mat. And the third option is just relaxing the head and turning the head from one side to the other. So it's a minimal turn, and the client doesn't have to have this full range of motion, which many people do not. Having the top of the bolster sit below the collarbone is the perfect placement, again, so that when you press into the back, the bolster is not pressing directly into the throat. That would not be a good situation. And then having the cutouts in the bolster allows for the breast to fall into those open segments. And one of the big positives about this prop is that this lower segment sitting under the abdomen and under the pelvis helps bring the pelvis into neutral. So it just flattens them out. You don't want their back in extension while they're in this position for long periods of time. Taking note of the client's body position when they're laying on the mat without a prop, you can see that the back is slightly arched, slightly extended. And if we look up here to the neck and the head is completely turned. So that means the client has to have a full range of motion in the neck to comfortably lay in this position. So we will position the prop for the client. So just asking the client to elevate slightly, sliding the prop in, engaging that the prop sits under the collarbone. So now there's a more of a flatness here at the back, which will create a more relaxed situation for the back, especially if they're in this position for 20 or 30 minutes, allowing space for the breasts. And then if you notice, the head is not turned in such a full fashion, so we're not getting that full range. So clients with a stiffer head or neck or upper back or shoulders will be able to stay in this position with much more ease and comfort. Basically, the rule of thumb is if there's an empty space, fill it with a prop.